Microman.
Hello and welcome to the Swedish Transformers podcast. My name is Linda and I'm a loyal Autobot.
And with me, Gustav, the deceptive Decepticon. And also today, Linda, we have a guest.
We have a special guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Martin. I'm from Denmark. I'm a collector, and I'm very honored to be here today and hopefully talk about something interesting. And if you fall asleep, please don't blame me.
Please don't snore, I think you would say.
Yeah, that's too loud. We don't want that. No.
Exactly.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored that you asked me. It's very rare that I get to do stuff like this, so this is very exciting for me.
Yeah, I was at your PowerPoint presentation at Redcon. I think it was 2018 in Helsingborg.
Oh yes,
or
yes.
17 maybe.
Well, I've been doing that on every Redcon, so either one was probably that one. Yeah, I've been involved with Redcon since basically the beginning, and been doing presentations on various subjects, mostly relating to toys. Ever since, well, the prototypes for Redcon started in the late noughts. 2007, I think, was the first one. Oh, we even had one before. We were a couple of guys meeting up in Norway in 2006. Anyway, long story short, yeah, I'm a regular fixture at each Redcon every year. I try to, at least.
That's beautiful. But today we're also gonna talk a little bit about minibots, or a lot actually. We're gonna spit all the information about minibots and whatever there is about these smaller bots.
Exactly. The G1 minibot, we have to add the 80s small guys.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit disappointed because they're all Autobots, but
well,
here it comes.
Yeah, okay.
That depends on what country you live in, because there were actually some evil minibots as well. But yeah, I don't know if we should start there really, or
I think we'll come into variants later in the show.
Yeah,
because there is a really basic minibot collection, and there is the advanced, and it's a huge difference when I take it.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, minibot is, or was, the smallest kind of toy you could buy the earliest years of Transformers. They're very small. When they're robots, they're about the size of an action figure, like from Star Wars or G.I. Joe, and they would turn into cars. And in the beginning, they were called mini cars, and then they became mini vehicles because they started making aeroplanes and tanks and stuff like that. And funnily, not funnily enough, but curiously enough, one of the most famous Transformers, Bumblebee, is actually a minibot. And he was actually one of those toys that I really wanted as a kid, because he turned into a Volkswagen. How do you say that in English? Volkswagen?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. One of the things that I found really appealing about Transformers was that they turned into everyday objects, cars, and I didn't have a gun, but some turned into guns and work machines and stuff like that. But many of them were very American cars. You know, I didn't see a Lamborghini out on the street, or one of those Stetson cars, or whatever make they were. But there were a lot of Volkswagens. Volkswagens. Can I do that again, please? But there were a lot of those Beetles driving around in my area. So that was a car I actually could see and could imagine, if that was a real Transformer. So yeah, but for many kids, those were entry their entry into Transformers because those were the smallest toys, those were the cheapest toys. They were about the same price as a G.I. Joe figure or early on a Star Wars figure, stuff like that. So yeah, and there were 6 different ones to begin with, 7 if you count it differently, and 9 if you count it completely different. But then we're into variation territory, and let's hold off on that. But those original 6 were part of the original Ark crew that crashed on Earth, both in the cartoon and in the comic book. So they are, core characters, although some had more screen time than others.
I think most Transformers fans know these names. It's correct me if I'm wrong. The 6 originals: the Bumblebee, of course, Brawn, Cliffjumper, Gears, Huffer, and Windcharger.
Yes, correct.
And then there is this variant, I think, Bumper. You mean?
Yeah, well, Bumper or Bumble Jumper or whatever he's called is actually a completely different toy. If we go back just a year before Transformers launched, Takara in Japan, who are the collaborators with Hasbro in terms of designing and making Transformers, had their own toy line called Microman, and inside that line was a subline called Micro Change. The concept here was that these toys were 1-to-1 scale, i.e. when it looked like a small toy car, it was supposed to be a small toy car in 1-to-1 scale, and they turned into tiny robots. And they had 3 different types from the beginning: the Volkswagen Beetle, the Porsche, and then I can't remember the last car make, but the last one was the one that became Bumble Jumper or Bumper. For some reason,
I think.
Yeah, Master. Thank you. The Volkswagen and the Ferrari became Bumblebee and Cliffjumper respectively, and for some reason Hasbro skipped that last mold for some reason. But it actually did appear on shelves, but in Cliffjumper packaging for odd reasons. An interview with one of the originators of the American Transformers is quoted as saying, "Well, we wanted to fill out the line. We had this extra mold available to us, so we just put it out just to make some diversity in what was available." And that's also why there's a red Bumblebee and a yellow Cliffjumper, because they're supposed to be the other color, but they put that out just to flesh out the line, because I think, was there like 12 or 15 toys originally in that first wave? I think it was a relatively low number, but that's to expect from a new toy line. But they quickly fleshed it out with some more. There's a lot of repaints early on already, but yeah.
I also read on somewhere on the internet that Bumblebee came out as yellow and red, and Cliffjumper came out as red and yellow. Which is kind of, it's fun to read that, but it's like kind of also that I don't know if it was a mistake or that they did that. However, we want to see that today.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a mistake. It was to actually make the line seem bigger than it is. But most kids skipped out on those odd colors because that's not what they saw in the comics or in the cartoon. But that does not make those odd colors especially rare, because the toy line was so popular that everything was bought, no matter what it was. So those early toys are getting rare because they're old, but they're not getting rare because some of them were not sold. So, but they're fun. I like Bumblebee in red. That's actually a very, very pretty colorful one.
Yeah, and I also like that IDW is it's not getting ignored, this fact that Bumblebee was also red and Cliffjumper could be yellow. We already have this specific comic book where everyone thinks that Cliffjumper is Bumblebee, but in red paint instead. And there's like complimenting him that, oh, nice red paint.
Cool.
In that story, I think it's Defosaurus that wants Bumblebee to follow him to a mission, but Bumblebee is busy, so you have to take the next best thing, and Cliffjumper has to come along and pretend to be Bumblebee.
Brilliant.
So they keep using that. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's also an old trope in terms of toys, because for many years Cliffjumper would be a repaint of Bumblebee and the other way around. Even the Pretender toy, the G1 Pretender toy, everybody thinks that Bumblebee looks more like Cliffjumper, even though it's still a yellow Volkswagen. So poor Cliffjumper, always being mistaken for someone else.
He always dies and
always
he's
getting
always
killed off.
Yeah.
He dies and he gets what is it called in English? Mistaken.
Yeah. Well, isn't it a classic thing that all red shirts will die on each mission?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't ever be red in battlefield.
Yeah.
So a good start if you want to be a minibot collector is this first wave then, 84 to 86.
Yeah. There are millions of them out there. I wouldn't say millions, but many tens of thousands of those toys out there if you want regular versions still, and they're actually being reissued. There was some reissues a few years ago in America of these early minibots and on cards and with original card art. They're very nicely done actually. So collecting minibots, the original 3 waves is very easily to do and doesn't take up much space, and there are a lot of iconic characters amongst those like Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, Warpath and Wheelie. And they're very nicely done, I think.
Yeah, and you don't have to sell your car to have for them.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you want them on cards and unopened and graded and stuff like that, you have to sell a couple of cars. But loose and very good condition, that is quite affordable.
Yes, that was a little introduction to what minibots are, but I have some questions, regular Transformers question for you as well.
Yeah, oh shoot.
Yes,
Shoot.
How did you get in contact with the franchise first?
Well, ironically enough, my first Transformers toy was a minibot. I remember being in a toy store and looking at this presentation of new toys and thinking, wow, this is, I wouldn't say it was different, but it had a lot of elements that I wasn't familiar with, especially the concept of one toy turning into another toy. I mean, I could take my Lego and build that into something else, but this was new to me. GoBots had been around for about a year or so, but I had never seen those. So for me, Transformers were the first, and I bought a Sea Spray that day, and yeah, I was lost ever since. Yeah.
So it's not like the episode "The Girl Who Loved Sea Spray." It's the man who loved sea spray.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you define love, maybe.
Platonic.
Yeah, definitely. No, but there's a thing about those really early ones. The first one, you know, your first love, your first car, your first house, stuff like that. I've taken a shining to everything Sea Spray. I have about 15 carded samples of him from various countries. I'm very into variations, and I for some reason decided to collect country variations of Sea Spray. So I have 15 different cards with 15 different languages on them. Yeah, it's a hobby. What can I say?
It's fun with the smaller characters that are collected.
Yeah, well, I think it still has a lot to do with space and money as well. like I said, finding a nice condition minibot is not that expensive. But if you want to go into some of those early car characters, Prowl and Sunstreaker especially, they cost a pretty penny by now because they're old and fragile and haven't officially been reissued for many years. Sunstreaker, I think, was last reissued in 1990 or something like that. So even the reissues are getting old, and yeah, they're fragile, those early toys.
Oh shit. Excuse
Alarm!
me.
Alarm!
Ah! Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you say you collecting Sea Spray. Is that also your favorite Transformer then?
Oh, that's one of those question that is hard to answer. I mean, I kind of like all of them really. Some of them has more meaning than others, but I can't pinpoint one single toy. That's too hard. I mean, much of my collecting is also part of the history of that particular toy. I mean, that Sea Spray I got as a kid, I have it still, and it's a very prized possession of mine. But I also have, I don't know, I have a worn, beaten up Hook, one of the Constructicons, and it's incomplete and broken, but I can see that the kid that owned this loved it. He played with it, he had fun with it, and for me that also tells kind of a story. So I like that one as well. I have toys from all around the world. I have prototypes, I have unopened stuff. I have so many things that all have a singular story to them. So it's I like those stories. So it's hard to say one specific, even in terms of minibots. That being said, like my packaging obsession with Sea Spray, I do try to get each variation of him. I do try to get each variation of Wind Charger. I don't know why Wind Charger. Maybe because when I started, he wasn't a focus thing for others. I think it was around 2000 or 2001 I really got into variations like that, and just decided on Wind Charger. So I have about 30 of him. But most of what I do is also document all those variations. I mean, I can trace some lineage from each country to another country because of copyright stamps and colors and other stampings and mold details, stuff like that. And I my thinking is, if I have to track and document stuff like that, I need many samples. It's like archaeology of some sort.
Yes. It's interesting as hell.
It takes a certain kind of person, I think.
Do you ever, like, if you go out and travel a lot or something like that on vacations or something, do you ever like go into like, well, interesting stores and trying to find specifically just these minibots? Does that ever happen, or has it happened?
Not that I can remember, no. I do go into toy stores whenever I can, just to see what's on the shelves right now. But I haven't had the opportunity to visit any vintage toy shops. I know there are a lot of them. There are a few in Denmark, there are a few in Sweden, I know, and a lot around the world, really. But I haven't had the pleasure of trying to visit one of those. Also, I think the ones that I'm looking for actively right now would probably not appear those places
Yeah.
because they're so exotic and rare that if they do appear there, then that would be, yeah, one in a million shot. But yeah, no, I find most of my stuff online. Actually, the last couple of years, it's been mostly from other collectors who have said, Martin, I know you might be interested in this. Would you be interested in purchasing this? So it's not me actively hunting or shopping. It's more, person-to-person transactions because of the network I have.
Contacts.
Yeah, contacts. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Exactly.
So if you don't have any specific favorite, if you yourself were a Transformer, who would it be?
Oh gosh. Well, I've always had an affinity for First Aid. I like his alt mode, I like his robot appearance, and I like his personality. He wants to do good, but he's not really a fighter, and I kind of associate with that. I always love cars. That's my favorite kind of alt mode. I do like planes, and the early jets are beautiful, but I would be a car of some sort. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I take it you're an Autobot fan, though, more than a Decepticon fan.
Not necessarily, because I think my second favorite character would be Breakdown from the Stunticon teams, because he's so paranoid, and I just love Lambos. That I cannot deny that. If there had been a Minibot that turned into a Lamborghini, I would be all over that. I can tell you that much.
As a networking collector kind of guy, I see you little as swindle as well.
Well, I did have, or I still do. I have a sales booth at every Redcon, so that I can see where you're coming from with that. But I never try to swindle anyone. Please, please remember that.
Of
But
course.
I hear you. I know what you mean.
And the Minibots, the fascination there is from your first toys. I get it, because many parents, of course, chose that one. It was the cheap variant. Oh, I want a Transformer. Yeah, this sounds a fair price. I will buy that.
Yeah, Transformers was actually quite expensive back in the day. They are still nowadays, but they were expensive back then as well. I think, like I mentioned, a Minibot was around the same price as a Action Force or G.I. Joe action figure for the small ones. But let's say I think retail was around 50 kroner, if that makes sense to anyone outside of Scandinavia.
And that's about €5, I think, depending a little bit how it goes.
Okay.
Nowadays, then it was much more.
Oh yeah, back then it was probably more.
Yeah.
And
an Autobot car would be 3 times as much. So you could buy 3 Minibots or an Autobot car. And for someone who just wants to buy a random toy, then the Minibots would be the best option, because the price was more affordable. But
that's what I thought too, that it was like you get 3 toys for a price, and not only that, it's every toy is actually 2 toys. You have a bot mode and a car mode, which is like beautiful for a kid. Like, oh, I can play an action figure and a car. That's awesome. Or a plane or whatever. And I think that's also why Transformers just was a very good toy, a boy toy.
Well, it's not for me. It's not gender specific, though. I mean, it's all about the adventure and all about the imagination of it all. There are quite a few female fans around the world, so.
Oh yeah.
And I know male fans of shows like Gem, which in theory was marketed towards girls primarily, but
Gem is outrageous, you know. So.
Absolutely, it's my favorite intros to any cartoon. That song is just brilliant. I'm a trained musician, by the way, so
beautiful.
That's why I love stuff like that.
And Linda, you were into the Transformers being popular because it's changed into thing. I think Kinder Surprise have stolen the concept. You know, 3 in 1. It's a surprise and a car and robot and so on.
And a choking hazard. So 4 things.
Yay. all the things you enjoy in toys: choking hazards, chocolate.
Parents getting mad and worried.
Yeah. And Sugar Rush, my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about a memory we have of you as the Danish terrorist.
Uh-oh.
Because I think it was in Borås last retcon where we understand you have a hard time dealing with the Micromasters because we had a beautiful display there with a lot of Erector toys that was just standing there proud, and then you had the feeling you had to smash it. Can you tell us about this?
Oh, it's my worst ever day ever. My good friend Pete had brought his collection of Erector toys and wanted to display them for all to see, which was great. He had some beautiful carded vintage toys and vintage knockoffs and custom toys, and it was just amazing. And as the bumbling fool that I am, I didn't look where I was going and backed right into one of those glass display cases, and everything came crashing down.
Was this in 2019?
Let's see.
I
We
think
didn't.
it was, right?
Yeah, we didn't. There
I
wasn't
think it was.
any.
Yeah.
It's the last one we did. Yeah.
Yeah, my first retcon actually.
Cool.
That's how late I am in the game.
Yeah. It's never too late. It's never too late to be sucked into the. No, never mind.
Yeah, but I never actually saw it, so you don't. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
It's very well documented. I think there are pictures and video out there of me doing this. If not, then then a picture of the aftermath where.
Yeah, I saw the aftermath. It was beautiful.
Yeah, well, I've apologized to Pete many times, and I've tried to make amends. I hope he has forgiven me, and if not, then I completely understand. It's a dark moment. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm very happy about it.
It's always fun to bring up dark memories.
Isn't that my job?
it didn't take any damage, the toy, so we can joke about it.
Well, some of his carded toys became uncarded suddenly. So yeah. Anyway,
that was that.
Yeah.
And that's a Micromaster. Who cares? That is the next week's episode, actually.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Minicons, right?
Micromasters.
Micromasters. Call it whatever you want. It's same shit anyway.
Minicons is after Micromasters, Linda. Nowadays, I think they call Minicons for everything that's small.
Exactly.
Okay, it's a race of the race of themselves from a third planet, but okay.
Yeah, it's where they're getting fuel efficiency and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
by the way, what I said before,
that's the next episode, Linda. Don't worry.
Yeah, I won't worry. Oh shit. I won't worry, but it's like this is why I'm not good with this specific type of subject, and I'm so happy that you're here. But anyway, Gustav, take it further.
Yes.
Before
we have been into a different variants. How much do it differ from Europe and Japan from United States minibots?
Well, roughly put, there's not really that much of a difference in terms of America and Japan. Europe got a lot of American toys to begin with, made in Japan, and Japan naturally got toys made in Japan. So they had those early variants as well: yellow and red Bumblebee, yellow and red Cliff Jumper. In Europe, distribution was a bit sporadic to begin with. I think it's only the UK that was on board from '84, really. But some minibots actually made their way to France under a different banner, under a different title called Diaclone. And now it gets convoluted because many of those early cars like Prowl and Sideswipe were taken from one of Takara's toy lines called Diaclone. But for some reason, a toy company in France decided to import some of the same toys that became Transformers, but decided to call that Diaclone, even though some of the toys were from Microman. It's very convoluted. Anyway, long story short, too late. A lot of the mini-bots actually appeared around Europe, not that much in Scandinavia, to my understanding, but some of those early guys appeared here and there, and as soon as Transformers really caught on in Europe as well, a lot of stock came in from Japan, except those guys in France who did that odd Diaclone series continued to have some molds themselves, so they actually made a few mini-bots themselves. Most notably the what I call Wave 2 guys, and that's 1985's toys like Sea Spray and Warpath, Power Glide. I should know this. Cosmos. That's one guy more.
Beachcomber.
Yes, thank you very much. They actually exist as made in France type toys, and they have slightly different colors and stamps here and there. And then they, for some reason, did a different kind of pipes toy altogether. It was a hover, just colored in beautiful baby blue and white. One of my absolute favorite variants, and he's finally getting some official recognition now with the, is it Kingdom Come? What Kingdom? No, what's the current toy line called?
Yeah. Oh, Transformers. It's on my phone. Yeah.
He's coming as a Amazon exclusive kind of repaint and called Puffer. That's I've been a big fan of Puffer for many years. Yeah. But then during the 80s,
did he still have just the pipes as his arms?
It's 100% like a hover toy with round arms. No, with the arms with that knurled part for his hand, and the face plate. It's a hover just in blue and white instead of orange and blue.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful toy actually.
And then there is always South America, Mexico. I hear there's are really strange variants over there.
Oh yeah. Well, South America and Mexico are actually two chapters by themselves. Mexico, for some reason, got a license to make all of their own Transformers. So a lot of the really early stuff, 84, 86 toys, exist in Mexico as well. And in the late 80s, Hasbro in the UK, who managed all of Europe, saw that, well, Hasbro US was putting out a lot of nice new toys, Pretenders and Micromasters and Action Masters, what have you. But the kids in Europe were just then really getting into the comic books and the cartoons. So they were seeing adventures with, Prowl and Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and the Devastator and Megatron, but they couldn't buy those toys. So Hasbro UK decided, well, we know of a huge warehouse in Mexico with toys. Let's import that into Europe. So in the late 80s, we got a huge influx of toys from Mexico, those early toys and characters, including minibots. So and then we got a lot of those very nice Mexican variants. The company in Mexico, for some reason, decided to expand the minibots lineup dramatically. Instead of Bumblebee being red and yellow, you could also find him in blue and white and I think silver. Yeah, I think there are 5 colors. And they did the same for Cliff Jumper. And all the retools, like Wind Charger became Tailgate. It's almost the same toy, but they changed the face and the colors are different. Mexico decided to skip all those physical changes, but just recolored them. So you could find a Wind Charger in white and blue or in yellow and blue, depending on the mood and the time of day. So there are a lot of very strange and funky color variations from over there that are actually I wouldn't say often found, but they can be found a lot of the time in Europe, Sweden especially.
Yeah, didn't they also have these chrome-colored bots that were like silverish and like they could put this? I don't remember the name. Was it like some sort of chrome covering, and then they could put paint on it, and it was like red chromey or whatever it's called. Was it
Yeah.
the first generation that could do that?
No, that was actually for Generation 2.
Yeah.
Hasbro relaunched Transformers in '92 in the US,
Mm.
and they took a lot of those really early '84 toys and gave them a makeover. Sometimes they just changed the colors, but for the minis, they dipped them in chrome, so you have a very golden, shiny Bumblebee. And I think it was supposed to be Cliff Jumper, but it was Hubcap. They dipped in chrome red, and they did Sea Spray and Beachcomber as well. And Beachcomber became green and pink. The 90s.
Oh yeah, I think they used the vacuum way of. Sorry, I've been in the metal industry way too long. But like they paint these toys with like vacuum, and then they put the chrome in there. I don't really know the exact process, but it's like very weird. I'm sorry. I'm thinking, yeah.
No, that's actually very interesting, because my understanding is they coat it with something and put it in a machine, and then the metal flakes kind of congregate on those painted parts, and then they cover it either with color and then with some lacquer to protect it. That's my understanding of the process. It's not something you can do yourself. You need special machinery.
Yeah, pretty much like that. That they put a color on the chrome color, and usually it looks very beautiful in the beginning, but then after a few games it looks a little bit wear and tear, and maybe a little bit cracked too, depending how well it was made. Because you need the vacuum so that it can actually stick and taking all the particles out that isn't supposed to be on the toy, like dust and whatever.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool.
Going back to the Mexican and all the variants there is in the Minibots and Transformers generally, there are many variants.
Oh yes.
They love to change colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Is this, as yourself, the collector, is this your wettest dream, or is this a nightmare?
It's actually both. I mean, for a Minibot collector, discovering a variation that you haven't known about before, and some variations are still being found to this day. Actually, finding and learning about that is like, wow, this is amazing. And then the second part, how the fridge, and am I gonna get one of those myself for my collection? So it's a double-sided sword, really, because it's so amazing seeing new stuff, new old stuff, but also then comes the hunt for it. I remembered some 10-20 years ago stuff like Peruvian minibots, or Brazilian or Greek minibots was something we'd only heard about in rumors, and suddenly there was a huge influx on eBay of those toys, and we could finally get these. And nowadays, well, it's networking and having the right contacts, because I have a good contact in Brazil, who can find those Peruvian and Brazilian and Argentinian stuff for me. I know some people in Greece who can dig up the Greek variants if I need them. So the internet has really kind of, in a lot of ways, but also in this way, made the world smaller and made some stuff more available that was very hard to find many years ago.
Yeah. I have bored Linda with my collection of Dinobots Slash so many times. But I remember this a couple of months ago when I discovered on the internet, wait, they made a pink variant. What fresh hell is this? And then there's the panic attack, the sweating, I have to get it, and the satisfaction when you get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm still collecting my Dinobots and stuff like that. I'm only collecting on one very small version of Dinobots since I'm a little bit of a minimalist. I'm only going for very small things, or small collections. Like Gustav, you probably know what it's called. The Dinobots that I'm collecting on, the fancy ones, the big and fancy ones with chromed spikes and all that stuff. But yeah,
I thought you were collecting the masterpieces, Linda.
Yeah, the masterpieces. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, masterpieces of the Dinobots and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe I'll soon collect something else. Depends. Never say never.
No. The charm of the mini-bots is that they are pretty small. They don't take up much collection space. And I think that's part of the reason that there are, I wouldn't say many, but a lot of people collect specifically mini-bots because they don't take up that much space. And there are many to hunt. And like I mentioned before, some to hunt still. So there's a bit of fun in that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have 3 of each, Linda. 1 in the blister pack, 1 in car mode, and 1 in robot mode. And you have to have rotating so you can show them off.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you have to buy a house for your collection. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Can't recommend it.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
But Minibots was part of the beginning of the Transformers. What do you think it has done for the franchise?
Oh, I think it's been how do you say that? A foundation almost.
Like we talked. Father.
Yeah, well, it's been an entry point for so many kids back then. Like we talked about earlier, that it was the cheapest toy, and it was usually toys that were heavily featured in both the cartoon and the comic book, and listened and read books, merchandise everywhere. It was usually Bumblebee, sometimes.
Sorry, your cable is over the microphone. It's sounding a little bit.
Sorry, good.
We haven't. You can see this gentleman and ladies and gentlemen that Martin is doing a waving when he explains. It's this chaos of collecting.
Yes, I'm very physical when I do stuff. I'm waving to everybody, but nobody's waving. Oh well. Where was I?
Sorry.
The franchise.
Yeah, the franchise. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're kind of a foundation for it all because kids could afford these and that was their entry point into the whole universe. Hasbro has always made a point, at least during Generation 1, to have those entry level priced toys. After Minibots were part of the first 3 waves, they went over and changed that into the throttle bots, those pullback cars. They were pretty chunky, but very, very cute, actually. I think they're fun toys.
Yeah, and they had the ones that made sparks and stuff, I think.
Yeah, that's the year after that. That was the replacement for the smallest toys, and then the Micromasters became the smallest entry level toys, and Action Masters became the cheapest toys, roughly put. So they always had some of those cheapest ones. And actually, when Hasbro started realizing, okay, these Hasbro US, by the way, these early characters are actually what the kids really enjoy. They brought back Optimus Prime, they brought back Grimlock as a pretender, and they brought back Bumblebee. Bumblebee is probably he's the kid's breakout character that everybody could relate to, and is still nowadays one of the most famous characters next to Optimus Prime, I think. But he had this
a little strange, actually. How that come to be? He wasn't that big in the comic book. He got it from the Geat cartoon, I think, mostly.
I don't know. I think for me he was a big player in the comic book. But Denmark only got like 40 issues of the American run. But I think Matrix Quest, he had a semi-big role in that.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of they always had this, relatable kid style character for the kids to relate to. And they even brought him back for Generation 2 and for the movie, and yeah,
Mm.
yeah, he was the kid character, so to speak. And
I think it's just fun for kids to say Bumblebee. It just fits your mouth when you're a kid.
Yeah.
It's fun to say Bumblebee when you're a kid, and it's easy. Everyone can say Bumblebee.
Yeah, it's a great name, and it so perfectly fits that Volkswagen bubble there. It's great.
And it's small too, and the kids relate with small characters because they're so small among a huge world with grown-up people. So yeah, I think that kids can relate to Bumblebee in that specific way.
Precisely. One has to wonder if that was deliberate. Haha.
Maybe it has. No, I don't think Transformers toys had anything to do with the popularity of Transformers. No.
No, and a big conglomerate of a toy maker trying to push that actively. No.
No. We didn't see that in the movie or something like that.
Which movie? The Bumblebee movie?
No, I think the Transformers the movie.
The Transformers the movie, yeah.
And we talk a little about the downfall of the Minibots when they went out of action, so to speak. They were replaced by other small ones, as you said. Yeah. And nowadays we call all of them Minicons.
Okay.
Okay, not you, not collectors, but in general, often the comic books, they are Minicons.
Okay.
And after, how should we say, or the Hasbro franchise had different concurrents. Competition, exactly. And in the early 90s, there was this toy line Micromasters. Yes, which brought in the Micromasters instead of the Minibots.
Yes, that's true. Fun fact, they were actually launched as Micro Transformers. That was the logo. But I think Galoob, I think that's what they call, who made Micro Machines. I think they took them to court and told them they couldn't use that type of logo. So they became Micromasters instead. And yes, those early teams of 4 Micromasters were kind of the replacement for the Minibots. Definitely in terms of retail price and entry level toys for kids to buy for not a lot of money.
But here we will come into in the next episode. But here is you can build a whole city of them.
Yeah, it's great. I tried doing that once. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was actually my first Transformer, the Battle Patrol Blister Pack.
Oh, that's a great team. I love that.
Yeah, I can't forgive my mother who threw away my Sunrunner. Still, no. It haunts me.
Yeah, I would never forgive her. Never.
But let's see here. Do you have anything, Linda?
No, I'm just listening and trying to learn something new. I'm a little bit younger, and any small bot for me is just a Minicon. But I'm happy to know more about these toys. Since I'm a girl, I was not really introduced to the Transformers back then in the 90s. Okay. So for me, this whole new thing, it's a whole new thing with Minibots and all of these things among Transformers.
But were you aware of Transformers growing up?
Oh yeah, I was. Just that Mom didn't buy me Transformers.
No.
She bought me dolls, and that sucked. I never really played with them. And she bought the prettiest dolls, and I didn't play with them. And I don't understand how long it takes for a grown-up person to understand that if I don't play with dolls, I don't play with dolls. Don't buy me new ones.
Well, I was just thinking if you knew them from television or from other kids or
probably from other kids. I think my brother had some Transformers toys.
Cool.
Probably these minicons, the minibots, that were like these small toy cars, and then you could transform them and stuff like that. And then also the some of the cartoons also, which was strictly forbidden for girls.
What? Oh
Yes.
my goodness!
I know, right?
Yeah. But that would have been TV3, right? I remember they had the Generation 2 cartoon in Swedish with Danish subtitles.
Yeah.
Bastards.
I was also born in Finland, so I don't.
Okay.
I don't think Finland was a little bit bad when it came to maybe Transformers, because I don't remember so much from Transformers in Finland. Just a few cars and maybe something from the Generation 1 and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
I have very little knowledge about Finland, so this is very interesting. See, please note how I've changed this podcast to be about Linda instead of me. No, yeah, great.
Linda
cool.
has every episode. You have to share, Linda.
I am. But yeah, I came way too late into Transformers. But yeah, sorry, Gustav, continue.
Yeah, that was a little bit of the fall, I should say, of the minibots. But what do you think about the future for them?
Well, I'm always gonna be a toy kind of guy. I did read the comics. I have seen the Generation 1 cartoon, but I haven't really kept up with the latest stuff. I mean, in terms of fiction. But I think there will always be toys for a smaller budget, and for, I wouldn't say for smaller kids necessarily, because that was part of the charm with Generation 1. These toys were marketed for kids from age 5 and up, and they were complex and fragile toys, and the kids knew how to handle them. I think nowadays much of those toys coming out today are made for children younger than that, or they think they have to be like that for children age 5, which I think is a shame. I mean, it's not like kids nowadays have worse dexterity. I mean, they should be able to do these small puzzles no matter how complex they are or not. But as a concept of a minibot or minicon, if I have to talk
It's minibots. It's minibots.
modern people say nowadays, well, Bumblebee will always be a character, and he will always be available in different sizes, even the tiny ones. And there've been many different toy lines in recent years using that really tiny scale. I think there was some sort of blind packaged micro-sized toys that at least were available in America, and you didn't see what it was. You open it up and it was very simple, a tiny Dinobot Grimlock or a tiny Bumblebee. There will always be those tiny toys. If they will be named minibots, I don't know. I don't think they will appeal to the G1 collectors, other than if they have a favorite character. I mean, if you collect Bumblebee, you want every Bumblebee out there ever. So I think that would be a collector's item for those guys.
Yeah, just one thing. McDonald's, didn't they also have a contract with Hasbro with making minibots or something similar?
Yes, they did. Yeah, and it was such a strange concept, because it was really early in the franchise's life. I think it's 85, the year after it started.
Debuted, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it was some, I'm not even sure how big they are. I have never seen one. They were only available in Texas for some reason, and were two-colored, black and pink, and then blue and yellow, static figures of Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, I think. Really weird. They don't transform, but yeah, it's a Happy Meal toy. But yeah, I don't think most G1 minibot collectors consider them part of having a complete collection. But I know a lot of collectors who also collect them because they are Minibot related. For some collectors, you get to a point, okay, I can't find that rare one I really need, but how can I buy stuff anyway? So you branch out into stuff that's related, and those early McDonald's toys are very rare. Again, they were only available in Texas of all places. So finding them and completing that set, I think that 16 toys is quite an achievement.
Wow.
The only McDonald's Happy Meal transformer I have is the one that turns into, hamburger, pommes frites case and stuff. They're lovely, but
yeah, they're fun. I have a few of those as well. They're really, really fun. Weird, but fun.
I also have those childhood memory. Not sure if it was actually Transformers, but just some McDonald's toy that were a racing car or something. Not sure, but just a little memory. Not sure if it was Transformers.
McDonald's and Burger King have done lots of transforming toys as such. And I think in the early zeros, before the Michael Bay movie came, they had quite a few promotions with transparent Optimus Prime from Armada and stuff like that. If I remember right. So
we have Linda here, who is a minimalist, which means Minibots would be perfect for you, Linda. How should where can she find her first Minibot, and how should she know where to collect what is real, what's not real?
Yes. Well, first off, I would suggest coming to Redcon. Commercial alert. Visit Redcon. A lot of dealers there, and a lot of dealers will have some Minibots, and you will be sure what you are buying, because Gustav, you're touching upon something very, very true, that there are a lot of counterfeits out there. People are counterfeiting toys. I cannot grasp how or why this is happening, but people are actually making counterfeits of toys, and they're practically indistinguishable from the real deal. So if you want to build a collection of carded Minibots, unopened, on card, in blisters, you have to do your homework, because there are Chinese knockoffs that look almost like the real deal, and they're not. Luckily, there are a lot of online guides that can help tell the difference, but it's kind of scattered all around the web. I'm actually thinking about building a database of information in one centralized place, so information like that can be easily found, and also documenting all the variations known out there. That could be a very, very fun project. So now I'm not spoiling, it's a preview I'm doing right now.
So if you find a toy that is in bad shape, it's probably real.
Yes, and a good starting point is always to look at the stamp, the little text that tells when and where this was made. That stamp is something you can look up on the net and see, okay, this is real, and this is a 1985 release, or this is a Mexican version, stuff like that. So the stamp is gold in terms of figuring out what you have in your hands.
But I think that we're closing in on the end. If you don't have anything else you have an urge to talk about here.
Well, we did hint at this at the beginning about evil Minibots. I think we should.
You mean evil? Misunderstood. I can accept.
I think I should elaborate on that, because I kind of promised that.
Of course.
One of the countries that made their own Minibots, so to speak, was Brazil. They had, for some reason, only Minibots as their Transformers toys, and the first wave was was regular Minibots as we know them, and then some odd colors, but they were all Autobots on Autobots cards, and they looked like American packaging, but with different lettering. And then for some reason, they, a few years later, decided to relaunch that line, and they still called it Transformers, but they made their own fiction to it. And then they divided those few toys they had into two factions. I forget what they're called, but there was a good faction and an evil faction of Minibots. It's very, very crazy. And they had their own faction symbols as well. I think, Malignus for the evil ones and Optim something for the good guys. And Takara did some reissues as well. They did a box set of Minibots in GoBot colors, and there's an evil white Bumblebee in there called Bugbite that you have probably heard about as well. So there are evil Minibots out there, so beware of white Volkswagens. The yellow ones are good, white not good.
Oh.
Well then, that explains.
I think it's a good thing to just, pick up on something hinted at and actually delivering on it. But if I've promised anything else early on, I have completely forgotten it. So please forgive me.
Well,
Yes.
I think that was it. All about Minibots.
Yes, and next time we will continue into the small Transformers that came after the Micromasters, which then in turn will turn into a trilogy where we discuss Minicons.
Yeah, our first trilogy in this podcast, I think. No, it's not. Wait, we have the Michael Bay Transformers.
No, we don't have that. Let's continue. And but before we go, Linda, we have one important thing.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, you usually do this.
Yeah. Oh, you mean that one? Yeah. Stressful week. Holy crap. Yeah. Usually we have something called a Linda quote, but since we have a guest, I will leave my Linda quote to a guest.
Ooh. And what does that entail?
So it says that in the beginning of every podcast, there is a quote in the beginning. So like an intro, and this quote should be something then about something that a Minibot said, a quote.
A Transformer if you don't have a Minibot, but we're guessing you will choose a Minibot.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So you'll play this out as a nice little quote in the beginning.
Okay. Oh, geez. I don't have anything offhand.
Just that we should really warn our guests about this.
No, this is part of the fun, Linda.
Yeah, I'm having fun.
I think it was Bodiansky who took one of his old scripts and we'll take this one.
Yeah.
It was epic.
Well, I can find a movie from Valhalla here. What do I have? Can I get back to you guys on that?
Yeah, that's no problem.
If we can cut just 2 minutes, I'll
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We can cut it. Go for it.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, how about if it has to be something related to Minibots? How about Microman? That's the name of Microman in Japanese, and it's my worst accent ever, but it's related.
Microman.
Microman. Very syllable. Yeah.
Oh, my Japanese is terrible, so it's much better than mine.
Perfect.
Yeah, good work. We'll use that.
But it was great having you on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me, thinking of me. That's I love talking for some reason, and it's even greater when people actually want to hear what I'm saying.
It's great.
Listen. Yeah.
It's always fun to share your nerd, as you say.
Yeah. Well, nerd isn't that much of a bad word these days.
No,
So
it's a language nowadays.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting nerd out with you guys. It's been a
You're
pleasure.
always welcome back when we have a topic of your liking.
Ooh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So if you have anything you want to put on the list, just let us know.
I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and the next podcast is Micromasters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, in the end, I say, till all are one.
And I usually say, may your luster never dull and your wires never cross.